Are you interested in creating a Power BI report? Are you looking to see just how to get started in creating the Power BI report? This video, you're going to see just that. This is a very, very simple video. It's a very, very simple tutorial in how to create a Power BI report. We are going to be using a very simple database, but it's going to be, I like to consider it to be pretty exciting. We're going to be using the database of professional football quarterbacks. I don't want to use the name of the professional football organization, but if you are familiar with professional football here in America, not football that's worldwide, but football here in America, American football, you will have a pretty good idea of where the information or what type of, well, you have a pretty good idea of where the information is coming from. But I don't want to necessarily put their information out there because I have not been endorsed by them and they are not paying me for this video. So therefore, I'm going to keep all name and recognitions of where that information is coming from and what that organization actually is under wraps. I'm pretty sure between now and the next hour or so, I'm going to slip up and call the name of the organization, and then I'll probably send them a proposal to try to get some type of endorsement for it, but we all know how that goes. Anyway, we are going to be looking at the statistics of professional football quarterbacks. It's not going to be as current as of today, as of this video, but within the last 2 weeks. I mean, we've got several, well, not we, but they have several quarterbacks that have been injured or injured reserve or not playing or have been yanked from the teams and been placed as backup players and stuff like that. But with that said, we are going to be using statistics, data from the professional football organization, the primary professional football organization here in the United States. Now, the reason why I like to use these statistics in this organization is because we go crazy over professional football here in the United States this time of the year. We go crazy over professional football here in the United States at this time of the year. And just getting some idea of what the stats look like, what statistics look like, and how data visualizations can actually be built out using Power BI for this type of information is, I like to call it, fascinating. One, because I like football, and two, because I like data, okay? So I kind of brought both of those guys in together and we can get a pretty good idea of how different statistics are brought into play. I like to say this first. So sports betting is actually pretty big. Sports betting is actually pretty big. And of course, sports betting on professional football here in the United States is big as well. So this is similar data that these guys use within sports betting. It's not the exact information, so I don't want you to take this as the exact science of sports betting, but this is how, if you wanted to get into Power BI and you like sports, this is one way that you could visualize, this is one way that you can create data visualizations for sports franchises, not just football, but baseball, basketball, soccer, hockey. The setup itself is going to be universal. For this particular video, I use professional football, but again, it could be universal. It could be for professional football, collegiate football, high school football, middle school football, or let me back up. Not just football, but it could be for professional sports, period. Collegiate sports, high school sports, middle school sports, even if you want to do it for fun with for youth sports, and we know youth sports could be big business depending on where you are. I'm here in Texas, and youth sports is huge. I mean, some youth sports go year round and they're super expensive to get into. But where I'm going with that is using data analytics for sports. If you're saying, hey, I want to get into sports, I want to play a part in sports. And beyond this, there's no way that you're going to be a professional athlete, professional football, basketball, hockey, whatever the case may be, but you want to be a part of a professional franchise. Data analytics is one way that you can go, and creating data visualizations is one way you can go. Okay, so that's what I'm hoping you're able to get out of this video. I'm hoping that you're able to get out of this video that if you want to get into sports, you can get into sports via data analytics. Now, with that said, of course, data analytics is worldwide. It's multi companies, industries. So, but I'm just using in this, for this particular video, I'm using sports, and more specifically, I am using professional football. And then even more specifically than that, I'm using the quarterbacks of the professional football organizations. So I'm not going to go very much further before, well, let me say this. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. It helps me be able to put out more videos just like this and be able to communicate with what I like to call my power players. That would be you, with information that you could probably use to take back to your organizations, or information that you can use to build out portfolios so that you could be able to present to organizations that you may either want to create businesses for, or create business relationships with, or even create portfolios to where you're able to walk in your interviews and say, hey, I created this project, or I created these projects, and take a look. But with that said, no further ado, let's move right into creating the report here for the professional football organization. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. And I'm just going to walk you through how I created this report. Actually, it actually gave me a little bit more trouble. Not necessarily trouble, but it actually kind of challenged me a little more than normal, even though it was, well, primarily because it's such a basic database. Sometimes think the more simple things are the more challenges they give you, because you find yourself trying to make it more complicated than what it has to be. So in this particular visualization, what I'm creating here is a table visualization. And basically, if you followed any of my other videos, you know that the first thing that I like to do is create a table. And the reason why I like to create a table, I take the data from the data that we currently have in the actual, the table that we actually have in the data. And I build out the table first, just to give me some idea of what the data that we have actually is, right? It gives me a starting point. Many times I won't even use the actual table, but it gives me a feel for just getting started. A lot of times I'm like, where do I even start at? Do I create a card? Do I create a measure? Do I create a funnel? Do I create a donut chart, a pie chart? Do I create a column graph, a bar graph, a line chart? Where do I start? So to get my mind wrapped, it's kind of like, if you go to the gym, you put on some lightweight, you do like 10 reps, you put on about another 10 pounds, and you do a few more light reps before you take that thing up heavy. That's kind of how I look at building out a table visualization when I'm building out a report. I create the table first just to get my mind ready to wrap it around how I'm actually going to build the remainder of the report. And it gives me some visual, it gives me a visualization visual. It gives me some visual as to what is actually in here, what's actually in the data. Now, typically I would have to go into the data itself and then, well, not have to, but I would go into the data itself to see what is in here. What type of data we're working with. But I already know we're working with the statistics. We're working with the statistics of professional football quarterbacks. We're not looking at running backs, linebackers. We're not looking at receivers. We're not looking at the offensive line, the defensive line. We're only looking at the quarterbacks. Now, we're not even looking at team specific. We're only looking at the quarterbacks. I do have a video out there to where that I did create to where it was teams and it was quarterbacks and all kind of crazy stuff. It was a little bit more detail there was a little bit more detail to that report than this report. But in this report, I just want to show you just the basics of creating a Power BI report. And, the first thing I did was I built the visualization, a table visualization, and I brought all the quarterback statistics into the visualization. Now what I'm doing here is I'm looking at the image URL. I'm creating an image URL, because what I want to do is when I select the quarterback, I want that quarterback's picture to populate. I want that quarterback's picture to populate. So As you can see, I'm pulling in player. Initially, I was bringing in the picture. Now I'm bringing in the player name. And the reason why I'm bringing in the player name is because I want to be able to compare the image URL visualization to the actual, well, not to the actual, but to the visualization that is in the player visualization. As you can see at the bottom, in the bottom table, I don't have a picture. I don't have an image in the bottom table. I just simply have the name, and then I have the statistics. Bringing in the images was a little bit challenging. It's probably something that a new Power BI developer probably will not be bringing in an image URL, because the image URL, the data that I brought into the bottom table that has the player name and the different stats of the player, I'm going to call it simple data. And I hate to use the term simple because, it's simple to me because I've, created so many reports before, and I've gone through so much data in the past. So it's simple to me. So I don't want to oversimplify it. I don't want to make it seem as if I'm oversimplifying it. If you can't do it, you're stupid. No, that's not the case. Trust me, that's not what I'm trying to imply. But it's just the basic data, whether it be a professional football report or whether it be for financial information, financial data. That this is the standard data the basic data that will be coming into the report. In this particular case, we're talking about professional football quarterbacks. The reason why I'm being so specific and detailed in between, differentiating between the bottom table and the top table, is because the top table does have the image URL. Now, what does that mean? If we're using the image URL, well, let me go back because that could be a little confusing. So of course, a URL typically, if you go to a website, right? You go to a website and you type in www.abc.com, right? www.abc.com is a URL, right? Whenever you go to a website, the address of that website is the URL. I think it's the Uniform Resource Locator, if I'm not mistaken. But you're going to the website where you go to a website using a URL. Is it Uniform Resource Locator or Universal Resource Locator? It's URL. You can put it in Google and they'll tell you exactly what URL stands for. I think it's Uniform Resource Locator. But at the end of the day, the URL is not in the initial data, which is the data that I pulled into the table here at the very bottom. Now the top is a table as well, but it does have the image URL. The reason why I specify that it's the image URL and not just the URL is because there is a website that each one of these images are attached to, right? And with the website of each one of these images being attached, that address that has the image attached to it is a URL. So therefore that image is attached to the URL. So I'm calling that an image URL, not just a regular URL. Because again, a regular URL, you're going to a website and you may be going for information. In this particular case, I went out and I found the images of each one of the quarterbacks, and then I called that image of that website image, I called that the image URL. So just want to be clear as we go forward and we're talking and speaking in reference to image URL. And again, the reason why I wanted to get the image URL was to kind of get my report, make it just a little bit more dynamic. There's not very many reports that you will create, even reports that I've created, that I've had to use an image URL, right? And a lot of times when I'm creating a report, the company that I may be creating a report for may not even be aware that you can bring an image in. Two, they may feel that it's too complicated to try to bring an image in. And three, there are some steps, there is some information that may need to be provided in order to bring an image in. So, but in this case, bringing in the image URL is just a slight bit more advanced than just creating a basic Power BI report. I just want to give you a little bit more than just creating a Power BI report, a basic Power BI report. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm creating a funnel. I'm creating a funnel. And basically a funnel is, a funnel is when you layer data by a particular or a specific type of value. So basically when I say a funnel, what a funnel, and basically that top image is a funnel chart. It's considered to be a funnel chart. So it's that funnel chart is one of the visualizations that's available to be created in Power BI. It's one of the standard visualizations. So it's not something I just went out there and created on my own. It's already there. And typically the visualizations in Power BI that are used on a common basis are the standard visualizations. Those visualizations are under the visualizations right there in the middle of the screen, and you can just select which one of the visualizations you would like to create, bring in, however you want to call it, and then what you would do is you would just click it, or you would drag it over into your design field, your design pane, your report field. Now, what I'm doing now is I am creating filters for my funnel, because as you can see, what this funnel, I didn't really explain exactly what a funnel is. So let's say you've got in the NFL, I almost did it. I didn't do it. Let's say you've got professional quarterbacks. Right? And let's say there may be 32 teams, and there may be 3 quarterbacks per team, right? And so that's what, 32, 90, so that's about 100, almost 96, it's like 96 quarterbacks. Then there may be a position like a running back or receiver where somebody may do a wide receiver pass or a halfback pass or something like that. So that gave them a position of quarterback for a play because they acted as the quarterback. So there could be a case where we may have 150, 200 quarterbacks within the professional football organization. So with the, in this particular funnel, I am looking by pass yards. So we're comparing the quarterbacks by the total number of yards passing, right? The total number of passing yards. So one quarterback may have 10 passing yards. One may have 100, one may have 200, one may have 500, one may have 1,000. So the lowest quarterback could be at the bottom, and the one with the highest amount of passing yards could be at the top. Or it could be vice versa. The quarterback with the lowest amount of passing yards could be at the top, and then it could go all the way down to the bottom level, which the total number of the highest quarterback passing yards could be at the bottom. So as we see here, we are looking at the quarterbacks by passing yards, and as we see in this first funnel to the left that I originally created, because I say the first funnel because I just copy and pasted that same funnel, because we're going to use funnel for another aggregation as well. So basically now we're seeing that we're seeing that the highest amount is at the top and the lowest amount is at the bottom. Now, like I say, we could have 150, 200 quarterbacks, that have had some form of passing, whether it's 1 yard of passing or, 5,000 yards of passing. That thing could range. So if we do that, this funnel could get huge. That means we would have every quarterback that's in professional football that's on this funnel, and it'll take up the whole graph, or we would have to scroll. So what I did to the right was, if you look to the right next to the funnel where it says filters, basically what I did was I filtered the quarterbacks. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So as right here, so as you see, this is the filter right here. This is the filter where I selected to have the top 15 quarterbacks selected or to be displayed in this particular visualization. And as you can see, again, if I didn't have all 15 quarterbacks, if I didn't have the top 15 quarterbacks selected, all the quarterbacks would be selected for this visualization. So then you would be seeing that jumbled up visual that we saw initially. And now what we have is we have just the top 15. We have just the top 15 quarterbacks. We have just the top 15 quarterbacks for this particular visualization. So now it's not as jumbled up. So it gives us a little bit better appearance than it would have if we had to try to use that one with showing all the quarterbacks. So now what I'm trying to do here is I'm just trying to give you an idea of different visualizations that could be used creating a Power BI report for a report that could be somewhat what I would call, quote unquote, fascinating, right? This report actually was a little bit, like I said, a little bit more challenging because even though there is what we consider to be a lot of information on a quarterback, a lot of data, a lot of statistics, of course, we've got the touchdowns for the quarterback. We have the touchdowns, the passing yards, passing percentage, interceptions. We've got, let's see here. If I can give you exactly what is in here. So we got first downs for quarterbacks, first down percentage for quarterbacks, 20-yard passes, 40-yard passes, the attempts, the completions, the completion percentage, the index that they use to rate the quarterbacks, because they have the quarterback ratings. Then we've got the actual quarterback rating. We've got the interceptions, how long, the longest yards the longest yards for the quarterback, the quarterback's name, the sacks, the sack yards, touchdowns, and yards attempted. So, we do have a lot of information that we can use for a quarterback, but to be honest, you don't want to see all of that information on one report. And that is pretty much an example of what would be used on just a regular report. You just don't want to use all the information that's available. So you've got to look at the information. You've got to determine what part of this information you want to use. That's kind of what was challenging for me, because I had to understand, I had to realize that I'm not going to use all of this information. And if I don't use all of this information, there's not a whole lot that's going to be provided on the report. Now, with that said, typically what I like to say for a Power BI report, you like to have somewhere between 6 to 10 visuals. I believe the end result of this report is about 6 to 10 visuals. And the visual is all the things that you see. Each one of these quote unquote tiles that you see is a visual on the report. So as we have here, I'm now comparing quarterback to passing yards, and I created another funnel, and I call that touchdowns. I call that quarterback touchdowns. So we're comparing one funnel. We're looking at the top 15 quarterbacks by passing yards, and then another funnel, we're looking at the top 15 quarterbacks by touchdowns. And of course, as we know, for those that are fans of professional football, just because you have the most passing yards does not necessarily mean that you're going to have the most touchdowns. But what this allows us to do, this allows us to look at both of these funnels to see who is in both of these categories. Because if we've got a quarterback that's in the top 15 passing yards and a quarterback that's in the top 15 touchdowns, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say 9 times, but probably 8 times out of 10, that quarterback is probably in the running for the most valuable player of the whichever conference that they're playing in. So this is one way that we can see, how these guys are judging or comparing the top 15 quarterbacks, and a lot of the top quarterbacks or the MVP quarterbacks. And in a lot of cases, we look at we hear about quarterbacks, and we hear about teams, and we be like, I don't really like that team. Why they always pick that team, or this, that, and the third. I mean, when I look at, for instance, Dak Prescott, who is not necessarily hated, right? But he's on a team that you either love the team or you either hate the team. Most cases, not somewhere in the middle. Either you love the team he plays for or you hate the team that he plays for. But when I look at when I look at the games on Sunday and I look at the results on Sunday, the team that he plays for is not necessarily one of the best teams in the league, but he's fitting into a category of being an MVP candidate. Now, of course, with a losing record, it's probably not going to be an MVP candidate. But that's what I'm saying is you can actually look at these types of visuals or these type of visualizations or these types of reports, and then get an idea of why, when we look at sports channels, that they're always talking about certain players, and you're like, but they're not even winning. But when you look at what they're doing and look at their statistics, comparing what they're doing, statistic to statistic against their counterparts on other teams, then you kind of look at, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And of course, this type of information is what is being used for sports television, sports radio, sports news, when they are, dropping information about different players and different teams. And I'm not talking about gossip information. I'm like player contracts, and this player got into it with their quarterback and this player got into it with the coach. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about solid statistical information. I need to take another drink of water. I'm talking solid statistical information, the facts of what this thing is. Because at the end of the day, the fact is one team scored more points than the other team, so the team that scored more points won. No matter what else happened during the game, who won, who lost. When you're comparing quarterbacks and you're saying, hey, this quarterback is better than that quarterback. Well, my question is, how many passing yards does he have? How many touchdowns does he have, right? And then, we have quarterbacks in the league to where people say, well, this quarterback, he's not necessarily a dynamic player, but he's a game manager. He makes sure that the team wins. He puts the team in position to win. That's all fine and dandy. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at the stats, right? I'm looking at the stats because the quarterback can put their team in position to win, but that quarterback is not going to be MVP. I'm looking for the best quarterback. What I'm looking for here is I'm looking for the best quarterback. Who's the best quarterback? Who's got the most passing yards? Who's got the most touchdowns? Who has the least amount of interceptions? Who's taking the least number of sacks? Who's taking the least number of sack yards? And then we put some type of parameters around each one of those. Well, I'm not gonna say we. I'm gonna say I can put parameters around each one of those statistical categories, and then create a value to say this is the quarterback that's the best quarterback in the league. And that could be done across the board for any of the positions. Let's just say for the running back is probably the next position is probably the easiest to do because you can measure their statistics. The wide receivers and tight ends would be the next category because you can put numbers around how many yards, receiving yards they have, how many first downs they have, so you can do it that way. And then on defense, how many tackles someone has, how many tackles for loss someone has, how many sacks a person has, how many sacks for loss or sack yards someone has made. That's pretty simple. Now, when you look at offensive linemen it's kind of tough to put numbers around the offensive lineman. You could say that when this person is on the field, the quarterback is sacked fewer number of times, right? Or you can say the quarterback is sacked more times when this person is on the field. You can say that when this person on the field, there have been more yards gained to the left side of the field, or more yards gained to the right side of the field, or more yards gained, period, or more passing yards gained when this particular person is on the field. When this particular center is snapping the ball, he's had X number of continuous snaps without a drop, right? Or without a bad snap, or without a fumble between the center and the quarterback. So it gets kind of tough when you start talking about the offensive line. The offensive line is pretty tough to create numbers for, because those numbers are not necessarily readily accessible. Someone probably has them, but at the end of the day, we're not talking about how many yards a running back got when number 77 was on the field, right? Now, when he's trying to get his contract extension, his attorney probably, his agent probably is using some type of data analysis in order to provide that within his contract disputes. Now, with that said, if you agents out there are trying to create some type of data visualization, trying to create some data analysis for your big boys to get more money, you need to holler at me. Get at your boy. Don't be playing with him. You already know. Get at your boy. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. So now what we're looking at here is I'm really struggling, for the lack of any better term, kind of struggling, trying to come up with additional visualizations without using all of the same visualizations, because I really don't like using two of the same visuals on a report. I don't like using two of the same visuals on a report, i.e., these visuals to the right. Actually, the visual we have here is a funnel. The two visuals to the right, they're funnels. I don't like to have two or three visuals, two or three of the same visuals telling the same story. What I mean by telling the story is each one of your visualizations, your report itself tells a story. Your report itself tells a story. So the complete report here is going to tell the story of the quarterback. The quarterback you select is going to tell a story about the quarterback. It's going to tell how many passing yards he has, how many touchdowns he has, right? What is his rating, right? It's going to tell a complete story. It's like having a novel, and this report is the novel of that quarterback. Each visualization, each of these data visualizations is a chapter in the novel. So one chapter could be passing yards. One chapter could be touchdowns, right? But when we write that chapter, we don't want to use the same image to describe each chapter. We want each chapter to have its own image, right? So that's what I mean by I don't like to use the same visualization more than one. I don't like to use the same visualization more than once. Now, there are times where I have used visualizations. I may have used two column charts and two bar charts, something like that. But I really don't like to do it unless it really, really makes sense, right? I really don't like to do it unless it really, really makes sense, because we should be able to tell stories using Power BI reports with as many visualizations as we have. We should be able to use that many visualizations to tell the story. And if it takes us a few minutes, if it takes us a couple of hours, it might take us a half a day to figure out, this is the visualization that I want to use to tell this story. That's how you create good Power BI reports. Good Power BI reports are not just built in 10, 15 minutes. It takes some thought into why you use the visualization, right? In addition to, you got to know the data, and the data's got to be accurate. But at the end of the day, we want that data to be. We want those reports to be very, very specific to that particular visual that we're trying to create. So what I'm doing here now is I'm actually formatting the funnel chart. I'm formatting the funnel chart. As you can see with the two funnel charts over to the right, you know, they are the standard blue, right? You know, I don't really like using standard. I don't really like using the standard every time, right? You may use standard colors, but when you use standard colors, you kind of want to, you know, offset that with background colors that are not same. For instance, this is a standard blue, and the two funnels to the right is a standard blue, and then there's a standard white background, right? Standard page background that's white. You know, so as Power BI developers, we don't just build out, put visuals on a page. We want the visualization to be aesthetically pleasing. We want the report to be aesthetically pleasing. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get an idea of how to integrate the colors of the professional football organization without necessarily including the logo. Most cases, I like to create reports. I like to create my Power BI reports, and I like to include the logo of the organization of which I'm creating the Power BI report for. Again, let me say that a different way. I like to create a Power BI report that has the logo of the organization. In this particular case, I don't necessarily want to use the logo, right? Because for several reasons. One, I know that they're very specific about individuals using their logo. Even though on this particular report, I'm not necessarily trying to sell the report. As a matter of fact, not even necessarily. I'm not trying to make money off the report. I'm only trying to create a sample report for individuals that may have an interest in professional sports organizations, professional sports, and they want to have, and you would want to have create some type of report that you can put in your portfolio to show when you go to interview for these organizations. That's what I'm doing here with this report. In addition to, I may go to the different professional sports, or I may go to the professional football organization and say, hey, I would like to create Power BI reports for your organization. And here is a Power BI report that I've created utilizing information from data that you have, and showing them how the data is accurate, showing them how the data is used, and showing them how they would be able to use this within for other statistical categories. It could be for stadium attendance. That's another thing. You don't necessarily, when you're working for a professional we're working for a professional football organization. It's not just about the professional football player. I mean, the professional football organization, the team is a franchise. So, you know, one thing that the owner definitely will want to know is data and statistics and visualizations and reporting analysis based on fan attendance, right? How many fans attended the game? How many fans didn't attend the game? How many season ticket holders are there? How many season ticket holders attend the game? How many season ticket holders sell their tickets? And the reason why that's important is if you've ever gone to a professional football game and inside the local city of the team, but the team that's visiting has more fans than the professional football team that's within the local city, somebody sold their tickets. Season ticket holders sold their tickets. People bought tickets and they resold the tickets. Whatever the case may be, and that should bother an owner when the fans from the opposing team comes in and they sell and they have more individuals at the stadium than the fans for the local team. Or you could have an owner that has the mindset of, I don't care who buys the tickets as long as they buy the tickets, because buying the tickets means we still make money, right? So they want to sell the tickets. But at the end of the day, having the data, understanding the data. For instance, what makes sense there is if you've got one team that always outsells the local fans, the owner may want to see that information. Even though they may not want to stop it, they may want it may even come to a case to where they may even want to raise the prices on that particular game, or they want to be able to market to that particular other market a little higher, a little bit better, so that market would be able to understand that, hey, we've got tickets for you. Come on down here. We've got some tickets for you. Long story short, it's not just professional football, it's basketball, it's baseball, it's hockey, whatever the professional sport is. This type of Power BI report would be good for that type of that professional sports organization. Let's see here. Now, what we're doing here is I'm still trying to get an idea of which visuals I want to use. And as you can see here, I've decided to go with the funnel. I decided to fix one of them up kind of pretty. What I'm doing with the other ones, though, not necessarily to use these. I may use them, I may not, but what I'm trying to do now is get spacing. I'm trying to create spacing within the report, trying to create real estate, trying to see what the real estate would look like. Because when we're building a Power BI report, when it comes to the data, of course, the data is what is important. The data is what's the most important thing about a Power BI report, right? The data is the most important thing. In the same respect, what's also important is the aesthetics. How are the visualizations placed on the page? How are the visualizations placed on the page? Where are the visualizations placed on the page? How are the visualizations placed on the page? And where are the visualizations placed on the page? The way I look at a Power BI report, so what we're looking at here is this is actually Power BI Desktop. This is Power BI Desktop. When we create a Power BI report, we publish it out to the web, or we publish it out to what Microsoft calls Power BI service or PowerBI.com. We're going to call this service here. So when we publish the service, then you are able to make some changes. But when you publish the service, then you're able to create an app and you can share the report with individuals within your organization. You can create different environments to where individuals within your organization can come in and view the report. You can create levels in which the person that's viewing the report, to where there will be certain things that they can do. They can view the report. They can make changes to the report. But you don't, just because a person can view it does not mean a person can make changes. Those are the two biggest factors. Now, with that said, here in Power BI Desktop, if someone has this report on their desktop, they can make the same changes that I'm making right here. So what I'm doing is I am trying to create spatial arrangements. I'm trying to create how this thing should look. And the way I look at creating a final Power BI report is a website. Again, let's be very specific here. Creating a Power BI report, the most important thing about a Power BI report is data. It's the accuracy of the data. Now, the data that's being used here on this report is data that I'm bringing in from another environment, and I know from another location, and I know that the data is quote unquote accurate. So we didn't start out, analyzing the data, what I call data soup, seeing, what needs to be transformed, the different changes we need to make. That's not what we started. We started with, we already have the data, right? So we already have the data set. We didn't go in and we didn't have to model the data. Again, if you remember, I said this is a fairly simple data set when it comes to creating a Power BI report. And the reason why I say it's a fairly simple data set is because we're really only using one table. We're really only using one table. And the table that we're using is the table of the quarterback. Now, I did create another table for the image URL, and then I created a relationship between the image URL and the actual data set or the table that we brought in. I created a relationship. And the reason why I created a relationship is because I wanted to be able to select a player name from the original table. And when I select a player name in the original table, I wanted the image of the player to be able to come up. Therefore, I had to be able to I had to create a relationship between the two tables. Now, that may seem complicated, but it's really not. It may seem complicated, but it's really not. In a more complicated Power BI report, there could be 5, 10, 50, even 100 tables that have to have relationships. Now, 100 table relationship is not necessarily something that's common. 10, 15, 20 tables is very common and is built out in what's called the semantic model. I'm not going to go too deep into that. If you guys someday take my course, Power of the BI, you will get a chance to, one, understand what the semantic model is, and two, build a semantic model on a very small scale. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually building out measures. I'm building out a measure. And this is all the measure is a simple calculation. For the most part, when you're building out Power BI reports, that's about as simple as a measure could be. Just a one-liner. You don't have to worry about, computer programs like C++ and C, because people say, hey, I don't know how to, I don't code, I'm not good at programming. You just saw how simple that was. That was a simple one-liner. Most cases in a Power BI report, when you have measures, it's probably going to be 1 or 2, no more than 3 lines, and just about as short of lines per as we saw there. Now there are some more advanced cases to where you could really get into that thing and really make it funky, and it could become a lot more detailed using variables. But for the most part, you're not going to be using that much code. It's just a matter of, I'm not going to tell you that Power BI is no code. I'm going to tell you it's low code. And as you can see with the code that we just used, it's simple. It's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple low code environment. Again, I don't want to oversimplify it and make you think that there's no code and that you don't have to do any thinking. There is some coding. You will have to do some thinking. I'm going to say it again, say it a different way. You're going to have to think to create a Power BI report, and you're probably going to have to create some measures if you want to be a very good Power BI developer. You're not going to have to, you're not going to have to know a whole novel of coding. But at the end of the day, there is some coding, there is some thinking that takes place. So what I just brought in here is a gauge visual. Up here we had a 1542. That's a gauge visual. And with that gauge visual, now what we're looking at is we're looking at passing yards again. Now, rather than using the funnel chart that we were using before, rather than using the funnel chart that we were using before for the passing yards, I'm like, hey, let's use a gauge visual. Right? So let's use a gauge. So basically, with the gauge visual, we're gonna be able to see the lowest number of passing yards, and we're going to be able to see the maximum number of passing yards, right? So as we see, the lowest number of passing yards a quarterback probably has is 0. So if a quarterback is a quarterback and they've never been on the field, the most passing yards they have is 0. So we started to the left at 0, and then the maximum number of passing yards that a quarterback can have is whoever has the most passing yards has about 3,500 passing yards. And then we're looking at it probably about I think the number that I was going to say an average. We could have used average for the passing yards, but I just selected a number and said, hey, the number of passing yards that a quarterback should have at this point in the season is 1,542. I pulled that right out my butt. I pulled that number right out my butt. I ain't even lying. That number ain't nowhere. It ain't nowhere. I just pulled it out my butt. 1,542 is the number that a quarterback that is playing at this time of the season should have 1,542 yards, right? That's slightly less than half of what the quarterback with the most number of passing yards, right? So that's what I use for the gaze visual. I use 0 because for a quarterback it's a quarterback that's never been on the field, they've got 0 passing yards. The quarterback that has the most number of passing yards is 3,500, right? So now, again, I'm still playing around with what does the aesthetics actually looking like here? What do the aesthetics actually look like? So what I am going to do now is I'm just trying to play with sizing. You know, do I want a bigger funnel? Do I want a smaller funnel? Do I want the funnel on the end? Do I want the funnel in the middle? Where do I want the gaze visual? Do I want the column chart? Now, this is a bar chart right here because it goes horizontal, and then the column chart that's over to the left, which is like a bar chart, but the column chart and the bar chart are very similar, except one column, I'd like to think that a column holds up a house, and a bar chart, you can put a wine glass on the bar. So, you know, now I'm trying to get an idea. I'm like, okay, I like the way this is shaping up because now I have a table up to the left where we have the quarterback's name, the quarterback's face, and I have the quarterback's name up to the top. I have the quarterback's URL in the table, image URL in the table. I've got the funnel chart, I've got a column chart, I got a bar chart, and I've got a gauge. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 6 images. Now the reason why I say with images, I've got 6 visualizations. The reason why I say I have 6 visualizations because you look at it and you're like, well, the name is up there. No, yeah, the name is a visualization as well. The name is placed inside of a card because what we're going to do eventually is we're going to select the player's name, and when we select the player's name, we're going to select the player, and then we select the player. That player's name is going to show. Where we have Aaron Rodgers over there, well, we're gonna bring in another visualization called a slicer eventually. And what we're gonna do is when we select the player's name, select the player, that player's name is going to show where that Anthony Richardson is right now. As you can see, when we select anywhere on the visualization, the magic of Power BI is when you select part of a visualization, it tells you what player is being represented by that particular selection. So we can select areas on the funnel chart, we can select areas on the bar chart, we can select areas on the pie chart, and it's going to give us the image URL and it's going to give us the name of that particular player. It's still kind of wonky right now because we don't have a slicer up here that's actually selecting the name of the player. So it's looking like Aaron Rodgers and we're showing Anthony Richards' picture. The reason why it's showing Aaron Rodgers in the picture in the card above is simply an alphabetical. It's simply alphabetical, right? Is the reason why it's populating. Now, why is Aaron Rodgers' picture not populating first? That's something that is going on within the table. But inside the actual card where the name of the quarterback is, the way that name is coming up is coming up in an alphabetical order. But now we see that Anthony Richardson's picture is populating along with the correct name, and that is because his name is selected in one of these visualizations. The reason why I know his name is selected in one of the visualizations is because the visualizations are a light color blue as opposed to the hard blue color that is the standard color blue. So What I mean by the magic of Power BI, when you can select a visualization and then it interacts with another visualization, that's what the magic of Power BI is. So if you can imagine that if this wasn't quarterbacks, but if this was company departments, let's say human resources, marketing, sales, accounting, finance, human resources, and you select one of the bars or select one of the columns, and the manager's face pops up or the something within the organization pops up. So basically the interaction between visualizations is the magic of Power BI. In addition to all of the other things that you can do with Power BI, the building out of the semantic model and the transformations that you can do all inside of Power BI. All of that is included in the magic, but for the end user, the magic of Power BI is the Power BI report ends up looking like a website and a web page, or however you want to call it, and then the end user is able to make a selection within the visualization, and the other visualizations are going to interact with one another. They're going to change colors and everything except make fancy sounds. But anything visual, you could probably do, well, I ain't gonna say any, but a lot of things with visualizations you can do with Power BI. So now we're just looking at the gauge, and let's see. Okay, we have the gauge going, and now what we're trying to do is see how we want to measure the gauge. We want to create text for the gauge. So basically what we're doing is we're creating a title. I feel like my chair finna break. So basically feel like we want to see if we want to create a title for the gauge. Just looking here. Trying to see what do we want to do. What do we want to do to actually make this report look just a little bit more aesthetically pleasing? Because it's still, that's why I was saying it was kind of challenging building out this report. It was a little bit more challenging building out this report, because even though there's a lot of data that is here, it is it's really kind of simple. It's really kind of simple because, like for instance, if you're looking at one of the NFL, almost said it. Didn't say I made it all the way through. I said I made it all the way through. But if you're looking at one of the sports shows and they are talking about a particular player, most of the time they're talking about a number. How many passes did this person have? How many touchdowns did this person have? How many times did this person scrambled? They're evaluating the player by a number, right? Very, very seldom are they evaluating the player by the college that he came from or the color of the jersey. They're evaluating the player by a number. So it's super, I ain't gonna say super simple. I was almost about to say super simple. Creating this report player-wise. Now you can imagine this report could get a lot more intriguing if we had one page, as we have right here, for the quarterback, and then one page for the wide receiver, and one page for the tight end, and one page for the defensive line, and one page for the linebacker, and one page for the defensive backs. So at that point, it does become, the building of the report then becomes a lot more interesting, because there's a lot more that will be going on with the report. In this particular case, we're only talking about the quarterback. So, what I'm trying to do here is, for instance, let's just say that you were in you were in my mastermind, and we were building out a project for you, a portfolio for you to present, for your interviews or for the team that you're going to try to, get contracts with. We want to build out the report to be, as aesthetically pleasing as possible, so that, these guys can know, oh, not only does he know the data, not only does he know what to do with data, not only does she know what to do with data, but they can actually build a report that, the owner of the team can really appreciate, and that, senior management of the team can actually appreciate. So that's what we're doing here. Right now, what we're trying to do, we've decided, hey, these are the visualizations that we're going to go with. How can we best position these visualizations on the page so that it would be the best representation of the organization? How can we create this report so it can be the best visualization of this organization? Because now we're pretty much at a point now to where we've determined these are the visualizations that we're going to go with. I think we may be like 1 or 2 visuals short, but we'll figure that out as when I say short, I think we probably need to have at least, because we got 3 on the horizontal here in the middle. So I think we want to have at least, I would want to have 3 visualizations. We don't have to have 3 visualizations or 6, because what I'm looking at to keep it, what's it called? Forgot what it's called. But I would think I would want to have 3 visuals on the bottom row as we have 3 visuals on that middle row. Doesn't have to be, because we could make the column chart on the bottom wider. That's what we could do. We could spread the column chart all the way across the bottom, from the bottom of the funnel chart to the bottom of the bar chart, and actually use more than just the top 15. We could probably say, we could say the top 20 professional football quarterbacks on that bar chart, on that column chart at the bottom, on that bottom row, to make it, what is it called when you have, I forgot, my mind is slipping. But it's just the aesthetics piece of it. But as we go, we'll see. And as you can see here, now I've brought in the slicer of the quarterbacks. So when I select a quarterback's name now, that quarterback's name appears in the top right corner, and when the top right visualization, which is the card that I was speaking of initially. So as you can see here, now the player, the slicer name, it says all. So we haven't selected a quarterback's name. That's why Aaron Rodgers' name is still appearing first, because it's in alphabetical order. Let's see. Now it's just a matter here. Do we want a long slicer or a thin slicer? Again, it's all about aesthetics now. It's all about appearance. What's going to give us the best appearance for this particular page on the report. Now, just playing with it here, playing with the column chart. Do we want the column chart to be all the way across? Do we want it to be as wide as the funnel and the gauge? Do we want to even leave the gauge where it is? Do we want to leave the funnel where it is? Do we want to leave the bar chart where it is? So again, now we're playing with the statics. We're just trying to get an idea of what is the best location for this particular report. We want to put the name over. And we've got the name that's right above the image URL. The reason why I think the name being above the image URL is because when we select the player's name, then when we select the player's name, the name is going to appear in the card above the image URL, and the face of the player, or the image of the player, is going to appear right below the player's name. In addition to the stats available to that particular player should and will come up as well. So now we are simply just trying to get an idea of where the different visualizations should be placed. We've determined which visualizations we want to go with, but we have not. So the mindset, the thought process that we have now is we've got a C-suite executive, or we've got an owner of a professional sports franchise. In this particular case, we've got an owner of a professional football team. And the operations team, they want to be able to provide the owner with data visualizations at the snap of a finger as to, what's going on within the organization, right? Therefore, when that owner sees this visualization, that owner is going to want first of all, they're going to want to see, they're going to want to know that the data is accurate. The data has got to be accurate. The most important thing about a Power BI report is the data. The data has got to be accurate. Then the visualization has to be aesthetically pleasing. If you can imagine the owner of a professional sports franchise, if you can imagine the owner of a professional sports franchise, the first thing they want to know is, they want to know if the data is accurate, and then two, they want to see something that's aesthetically pleasing, right? Because these guys, even with their teams and their uniforms, the uniforms have to be pristine. If someone is on the field and the jersey gets ripped, can that jersey be replaced with another jersey, within minutes, right? And in most cases it can. So where I'm going with that is, you want to be as professional as possible, and you want your portfolio to be as professional as possible when you create your Power BI reports. So that's kind of why, I'm taking some time here trying to make sure that we've got the different visualizations in places, in areas to where it looks good. It has to look good. See here. Now, what I'm looking at is, as I said before, I was like, I need either probably two or three more visuals. But based on how wide this funnel is at the bottom, we may not have to have another visual at the bottom, but I do think that we should have another visual here at the top. We're here in the middle, on this middle row. And this visual that I brought in here is called a pie chart. The visual that I brought in here is called a pie chart. And now we've got to see what data do we want to use for the pie chart visual. We've got to see what data do we want to use for the pie chart visual. Let's see. And this is all a part of creating a Power BI report. One, having the spacing, and two, telling the story in different ways. So as I said initially, when we create a report, the report itself is actually like a volume of a book. It's like, well, not a volume, but it's actually like a novel. The report is like a novel. So if you can imagine, this report is a novel. This report is a novel. And then each one of these visualizations that we're incorporating into this report is a chapter within the novel. So each one of these chapters within the novel, at the end of the day, it's going to take all of the chapters to complete the novel to tell the story of this quarterback, right? It's going to take all the chapters in the novel in order to complete the novel to tell the story of this quarterback. So that's what we're doing, is we're telling the story of the quarterback. And as you can see, we've got a lot of quarterbacks. So when I selected quarterbacks for the pie chart, it gave us all the quarterbacks. And we definitely don't want to use all of the quarterbacks. We only want to see the top however many quarterbacks. So therefore, we're going to do the same thing we did for the column chart and the bar chart and the funnel. We're going to we're going to create a filter, and we're only going to show a certain number of the top quarterbacks, whether it be 10 quarterbacks, the top 10 or the top 15. But we don't want to show all, probably close to 100 quarterbacks that's in the NFL. I got all the way in this video, and I ended up saying, I think I'm gonna cut that out. I'm gonna cut that out because I got all the way in this video, and that's gonna be the one piece I'm gonna edit because I don't want to say the name of the professional football organization. But now, what we did was we're only looking here at the top 5 quarterbacks. We're looking at the top 5 quarterbacks, and we're looking at yards attempted. The title was actually yards attempted by player. But we're going to call it yards attempted by quarterback. So now that pie chart is a little small, so we may have to make the gauge just a little bit smaller in order to make the pie chart just a little bit bigger. And that's exactly what we're doing here. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to pause this button here because, well, let's go back and let's look here real quick. As we look at this report, I say we want to make it as aesthetically pleasing as possible. So we've got a lot of standards. We've got a lot of standards, colors here, looks here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the final report to where I did some formatting. If you can remember, these are all standard colors here. These are standard colors. I'm actually going to keep these colors. For the funnel chart, we use some reds and some shades of reds and some blues and some shades of blues. The reason why I did that is because professional football, the primary professional football organization here in the United States, uses shades of blue, shades of red, white, and blue. So I did that as well. And then in the pie chart, we're going to format the pie chart as well. And then we're going to format the player name and all of that stuff. So basically, I want you to see, remember here that this is our initial draft. Then I'm going to come over and I am going to show you the actual, well, not the actual, well, I guess it is actual, but the final draft of what I have for this report. So basically, I formatted the pie chart with shades of red. As you remember, we had shades of red and shades of blue, and hints of white or red and white here in the funnel chart. Then we still have the blue, but we have a dark, we formatted the page background to have a dark blue so that we could keep the standard blue here on the bar chart, on the column chart, the bar chart, and on the gauge. Then on the player name, which was black initially, the text was black, we made that white, and we have the slicer here. So now if we select the slicer, we selected Andy Dalton. Now we get Andy Dalton's image URL, we get Andy Dalton's statistics, we get the bar chart just for Andy Dalton, the column chart just for Andy Dalton. Even though Andy may or may not be in the top 15, when we select his name, we will see what his information would look like on the gauge. And we select here, and we actually get, let's see, I want to say something. Yeah. So if I select Andy Dalton, now we see that he has this amount of passes at 261, 291 passing yards. If we select Aaron Rodgers, his name comes up, his image URL comes up, and he's at 1,400, and I guess was at, I have my glasses on, I think it's 1,429 passing yards. So basically this is our quarterback, this is our professional football quarterback report. I'm gonna try to update this on a periodic basis and come back and show you, you know, what the updates look like. So for you guys that are out there that are fantasy football players, fantasy football teams, you can actually be able to use this. You guys out there that are sports betting, I'm not going to tell you to use this for sports betting. It's only information. It's not something that's going to you can't win money or make money with this, but it's going to give you information. It's going to give you information, but it is there. Oh, excuse me. Drink some more water. It is there. So with that said, we have created a professional football quarterback Power BI report, and I hope you have hope you've enjoyed creating this report. But please understand that it's not just professional football. You can use this for any business, any industry, any company, any department. And we're talking about professional sports. It could be for any professional sport that you want to use, any collegiate sport that you want to use. It's anybody that has data we can create a Power BI report for. But anyway, thank you for joining in, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.